Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's Manulife Business Success Series webinar on Working Together, the Working Together Project, a creative approach to accessing immigrant and refugee talent. My name is Ian McLean, and I'm the President and CEO of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that we do live and work on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples as we seek a renewed relationship based on a foundation of mutual understanding and respect. Today's session would not be possible without the continued support of our sponsors. So a special thank you to our title sponsor for the Business Success Series, Manulife. Our platinum sponsor for this series is the Immigration Partnership of Waterloo Region, and to this month's presenting sponsor, Michael, and our friends from Future Focused Incorporated. These organizations are committed to supporting our local economy and providing businesses with the resources and tools they need to thrive. Just before the session starts, I'd like to go over a couple of quick things. Please ensure that your microphone is muted through the presentation so we can reduce any background noise. If you have any questions that come up throughout the session, you can type them into the question box in your control panel at any time, and I'll try and get through those. If you have a tech-related question, a representative of our team will get back to you right away. Just a reminder, all attendees will be sent a recording of today's presentation, and it will also be made available through the Greater KW Chamber website. I'd now like to invite our good friend Michael Snyders, President of Future Focus Incorporated, to introduce today's speakers. Michael.
Thank you, Ian. Future Focus is proud to be this month's presenting sponsor for the Business Success Series. I have the privilege of introducing today's speaker panel. Janet Lehman is the HR Director for JD Swede Foods, a national further poultry processor employing 200 employees locally in Waterloo. Janet has spent the majority of her HR career in the food industry and has been with JD Swede Foods for 10 years. In 2016, Janet became involved in the Immigration Partnership Work Pillar Steering Committee and has partnered with Reception House since 2017. In 2019, JD Swede Foods was the honored recipient of a Reception House Outstanding Community Partner Award and a Community Employment Literacy Committee Award in 2019. That's a lot to read. So Bashir Shabazz has a background in economics and has been working at Reception House Waterloo Region since 2007. For 11 years, he has served as a case manager, delivering settlement services to refugees. In this capacity, Bashir assesses refugees' needs, develops settlement plans, connects refugees to services in the community, and evaluates the progress. Bashir has been managing the Working Together Employment Project since August 2018. This is a research-based project that is focused on partnering with employers to secure employment opportunities for refugees and delivering on-site workplace language classes for the employed refugees, providing continued settlement support to employed refugees and on-the-job support to partner employers is another major 3 pillars in this project. This support ensures the smooth integration of refugees into the workplace. Finally, Sean Brake is the Dean of the School of Interdisciplinary Studies and the Conestoga Language Institute. The Language Institute includes ESL and language instruction for newcomers to Canada. Interestingly, Sean started his career in education with Link in 1994 in his hometown of Vancouver, BC. Since then, he has worked as a professor and in administration and post-secondary in Mexico, British Columbia, Manitoba, and Ontario. Please join me in welcoming Janet, Bashir, and Sean.
Well, thank you, Michael, and looking forward to today's chat. I just wanted to set a little bit of the context before we get started. For quite some time, we've heard, certainly at the Chamber, we've heard from a lot of employers for many years that there's a desire to get to know more about accessing immigrant talent and those that are from immigrant and newcomers in Waterloo Region. There's an interest in understanding how to onboard and retain newcomers, especially amongst small and medium-sized business. But one of the most highlighted challenges identified employers has been the lack of English language skills, as an example. In some entry-level positions, like manufacturing, English language may not be such a barrier. But if individuals want to move throughout an organization to other roles, it can certainly limit growth. And it can be a challenge for supervisors with onboarding and training and doing health and safety and all those sorts of things in terms of the language barriers in any workplace. In customer-facing roles, it can be a significant barrier, and it can isolate team members from their own colleagues. But what we do know is that all net new employment in the region, in the province, the country is going to come from newcomers to Canada within 5 years or less. So it's something we have to address, and I think business recognizes that they need to get the right talent for the jobs that are available. So the work that Conestoga and Reception House and the private sector, in this case JD Swade, have been doing is pretty amazing, and it's important work. And I think this is an opportunity for us to showcase that. 3 years ago, and Janet's been part of our work steering group, and we've worked together for I don't know, 3 or 4 years now. JD Swade identified concerns with being able to access staff or talent for their manufacturing facility. So Janet, through her involvement with the Immigration Partnership, made a connection with Reception House, an organization which welcomes newcomers here to Waterloo Region. At the time, Reception House was also experiencing a gap with their clients and other newcomers finding employment opportunities. And so this was a great way to try and solve both problems at once. JD Swade and Reception House began conversations, which eventually led to the Working Together program, which we're going to talk about today. So that program offers an alternative approach to hiring refugees. It integrates employees into a company through a supportive approach, which includes pre-employment training and screening, onboarding, and then also on-site English language training. So the team at Reception House worked closely with the employer and Conestoga College to create that smooth transition. So I wanted to set that context. It can work. I think one of the things that I would often say at the Immigration Partnership, and I'm interested in the thoughts from our panel today, but small and medium-sized business are fundamentally different than a large business setting. If you're a large business, you have resources and can do things differently than small and medium-sized business. What we know is most businesses are small, some are medium, but so we have to find and address the challenges that those small businesses face. So I wanted to put that context. Maybe let's start with the program itself. Bashir, in a nutshell, what is the Working Together program and how long has it existed?
Yeah, thanks, Jan, and thank you for providing us the opportunity to share some thoughts about the Working Together Employment Project. As you have mentioned, the Working Together Employment Project is a research-based employment project funded by Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada. And the project started in August 2018. What was happening that based on the Reception House many years experience of working with refugees offering settlement services and then numerous studies that took place, there were two things were happening. On the one hand, there were employers who were struggling with a shortage of the workforce. On the other hand, there are a lot of talented pool of refugee employees who had difficulty finding employment and getting connected to the employers in the labor force. There are different reasons. For refugees, obviously, the barriers were lack of knowledge of the labor market, the system, as you have mentioned, and the language component. And our experience shows that a lot of refugees, in particular those whom we are serving government as refugees, they came to Canada without having a particularly work experience in a structured workplace. A lot of them even can't imagine that there would be a place for them in the Canadian labor market. There was, when you work with them, you see that lack of self-esteem, lack of kind of confidence in their abilities that on the one hand, they are allowed to work in Canada legally. On the other hand, they can't do it. That's why the idea came about to start working, designing a project that can be able to deliver a holistic or wraparound service to both employers who are hiring newcomer refugees and to refugee employees to help both of these two players, to help refugees keep the job and help employers to retain the employees. Based on that ideas, Reception House submitted a proposal to Service Delivery Improvement Branch of Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship Canada for this project. The proposal was approved, and we started with our partners this project. And the project, as I've mentioned, started in August 2018. We have a number of community partners. Conestoga College Center for Community-Based Research is doing the evaluation. And Janet from the JD Suite has been the champion from day one. They were the one who started the partnership with us. We have other employers involved with us in the community now. And the project is about the system that has been created. We select the refugee job candidates, provide pre-employment services that include employment assessment, health and safety training, women's training, Canadian workplace culture training. Then we connect them to the employers, continue helping refugees with employers, organizing the workplace tour, helping employers with their onboarding practices, and post-employment services. Whenever there is a need, we are there to help both, as I've mentioned, employees and employers.
Okay. So one of the things I want through the course of this, and with Janet and Sean and Bashir in the back of your mind, is the employers that will either watch this now on our webinar, or that would listen to it when on our podcast or through social media when we send the link. They want to hear the business case and like, how can it benefit them? And I think without going into some of the detail, is what are some of the examples of how it's actually benefited? You know, in one way, it's more important that the employer just says, if that works for me and I get a good employee, don't really care who that is. In this case, it happens to be immigrants, refugees, all of which we need to harness. So I want to keep that context, because that's important for our business leaders. Janet, I mean, maybe building on that, why did you get involved? I mean, you are a great champion, and it's been a great partnership. Watching how JD Suite has taken that leadership role and really been an advocate for this. But how did you get involved? There was some urgency at the time. Describe how it unfolded and how you got connected, because once you did get connected, you've really taken this and owned this individually, but also as a company.
Sure. And I like to use the word desperation because it wasn't far off when we started this. We were having difficulty recruiting talent to our plant to such a level that we weren't able to operate. We were canceling shifts. We weren't going to meet our customer demands. When we looked at long-term solution to the problem, it involved greenfield projects, but not in the region and not in Ontario. So to keep the business here, we needed to find a way to staff our plant. We spent a lot of time looking at the foreign worker programs. At the time, it wasn't conducive to what I needed. Our NOC codes weren't supportive of the skilled stream, so we were looking for an unskilled stream. The caps associated would not provide us what we needed. So the foreign worker program wasn't a fit for what we wanted. I had reached out to Nora because she was involved with the immigration partnership, and it seemed like a great place to start. And it was through that involvement that I was introduced. Carol Simpson actually brought Carl and Bashir to the office so we could talk about, clearly they had the in on a group of candidates that were underutilized, and I wanted them to come to me. So we worked through some initial issues to get them onboarded, but that's how it started to great success for us.
Maybe I want to build on that a little bit. I mean, there would have been some unique challenges as you got started, and there is some things you have to work through. But maybe talk about those as being like in any business, those are just challenges. It's no different than hiring young people and saying, you hire a young person and they want to be the boss the first day that they show up at work is a challenge in HR, just as maybe language barriers or cultural or other pieces. Maybe talk a little bit about that, because I think that's where, you know, this is no different than a challenge in staffing any organization. You've got challenge to get the right people for the right jobs, and it's just a question of where you've drawn that talent from. Maybe if you can talk a little bit about that, because I think that's important, that this is not a sort of a separate thing that you would deal with as an HR professional and hiring for your plant. It's one of the issues that you would face, and you problem solve to make sure you get the right people.
Yeah, we entered this partnership with the understanding that I had the authority to provide some flexibility. So, you know, we had an issue with language supporting our orientation. We had an issue, language will come up on a regular basis, getting people through the recruitment process. So we looked at new ways that we could take down the barriers. We don't have interviews. I don't require a resume. We have plant tours now. An interpreter joins us. We go through the plant. They get to see the environment, and if it's suitable for them, then we hire them. Bashir has already done the pre-work. They've talked about who JD Swade is, what we do, what our shifts look like, what our wages are. So by the time we get to the tour stage, we already have people who are initially interested. Now you get to feel it. It's cold working in a chicken plant. Can you handle that? We lost a lot of people along the way due to them wanting to improve their English through ESL classes. But it took them too far away from work and the timing didn't work, so they were quitting to go back to get to school. And that was probably the biggest hurdle we had, is we couldn't retain folks because they wanted to improve their English capability. And that's really where the Working Together program started to spawn. How do we problem solve past this one? But all the other stuff is minor. You would have that with anyone.
But I think that's one of the things that we wanted to dispel is that in working with newcomers or refugees, that it's a different, or it's a challenge unlike any other. I mean, every HR professional that's looking to get the right people has got challenges and has to address issues to make sure you get the right person for the right job. And this is just one of those things that you've obviously seen success, so you can problem solve. That kind of takes us to Sean. Talk about Conestoga's role in the program, because I think you've heard from everyone. English language and that barrier for newcomers it's cultural, it's community, it's workplace, it's everything. But talk about the on-site customized language training work, because that's really been one of the real successes here.
Yeah, absolutely. We are the language provider, and that means a heck of a lot, because there are a lot of tentacles to that, if you will. So it's not just teaching English, so to speak. There's a lot more to that. And what's interesting is what I love is that the context we give is we have a teaching and learning department, T&L, so we have a lot of depth in terms of educating our faculty on how to teach certain groups or certain audiences. But beyond that, being in the pandemic, which I have to bring up, because that's revealed a couple of pieces with respect to English language training and how to really improve, and how we've improved on some fronts in this pandemic. So certainly the on-site piece, on-site has taken on a different kind of flavor, if you will, in the pandemic for English delivery. What's happened is, traditionally you would have us going on-site, perhaps to a company or to a certain site, physical site, bricks and mortar. With the pandemic and the protocols surrounding that, we now have, for example, mitigated by online, so it's online delivery, but real time. So real-time language delivery. I say it like that because online sometimes has that knee-jerk response of, oh, they do it whenever they want. No, it's guided. There's a classroom feel insofar as there are other people, other workers, other English students who are in the classroom live. So they have that classroom environment. And I mention it like that because what we really discovered are a couple of things. One is we're talking to small and medium-sized business owners perhaps on this podcast here. And we're able to scale up efficiencies by having people from different physical areas be in one classroom. virtually at the same time. There's a great efficiency. They otherwise couldn't have afforded, for example, having 1 or 2 students being at one site. Now we can pool those resources and have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 students coming together at that time from different sites, from their home, because there's shift work involved here too. So the other reality, the second piece though, is it's more than just being at work. It's the whole life, as people have alluded to here. It's what's happening beyond work sometimes. It's also prohibitive or challenging for workers. So we've heard, I mean, some of the wonderful pieces of feedback have been from our students, workers, is that, you know, in this new delivery, it sounds odd to say a positive in the pandemic, but this is a positive, is that they're now able to engage in classes they otherwise wouldn't have been able to, is what I keep on hearing. That's one thing. Of course, there are challenges, you know, the socioeconomic status or reality that Bashir alluded to, with respect to, you know, what they can afford to do. And all I can say is I can only applaud my colleagues here, because Reception House has been amazing in stepping up and helping to get devices and connectivity to these students, which has been wonderful, because again, there's the access piece. And those are the challenges then on this front, the access piece. So once you have a plan like that in place, you can engage students on many levels. And, you know, the context in terms of levels that Janet was talking about, I love the whole idea of, you know, really a low level to higher levels. And we do teach with respect to certain leveling. It's called the CLBs, Canadian Language Benchmarks, and it goes from 1 beyond. And just for context, level 9 and above is post-secondary level. That's not the students. The students would be from 1 and above. So you may have groups who are CLB 1, 2, and 3, some who are CLB 4 and 5. But the idea is, again, we can maximize efficiencies in this delivery, in this new delivery. So it's really funny, because I think what's been revealed is people didn't want to put their toe in the water, so to speak, for this kind of delivery of English. The pandemic has forced us all to think differently, to respond in a different way. And what's come out of that is this wonderful, innovative kind of practice, and people really being more open to different ways of delivery. And I do see post-pandemic, there will be a post-pandemic, I'm sure, at some point. And post-pandemic, what we will see, I think, will continue this kind of delivery, because it is so much more efficient and so much more convenient to companies and to students.
So, and I think that's important. I'm gonna just follow short with you, Sean, and then move on to Bashir. I'll come back to you, because I got a broader question as we get to the end. Like, this isn't just about one sector. I mean, this is about any business that can take advantage. But the pandemic has I think you've identified, the new normal is not going to look like anything, whether it's Conestoga College, the Chamber of Commerce, JD Sweet. It's going to look different. We're going to do things differently in a whole range of different ways. You talked about convenience, but it's also that flexibility too, right? I was saying an employer needs somebody, geez, you know, English is a problem, but how can I schedule that? And I think Janet's talked about this. If there's more flexibility in how Conestoga brings the teaching together with the skill levels, is that just, I mean, I don't know whether you can speak for Conestoga, but your assumption is that flexibility and that convenience is going to drive how you intersect with industry, because that's really ultimately what's going to drive the need, is industry saying English language is critical to getting the right human resources in my plant. How do you make those things work? Because it wouldn't have been as flexible or as convenient 9 or 12 or 6 months ago.
Correct. Yeah, I think Janet's points are really spot on, logistically speaking. The challenges of having to go to bricks and mortar sites, you know, to one space or another physical space, you know, those are some very big challenges. And to the point about deeper pockets for bigger companies to be able to afford that's another consideration. So being able to again collect different resources and to say, you know, we can be at one spot virtually, you know, which means you can be at your home, you can be at, you can be at the company, you can be at, you know, you can schedule breaks perhaps at your company, you can be after your shift at your company, you can be at home, you can do a whole, you know, bunch of different kinds of ways to meet, you know, being in a classroom now. So it shouldn't be that going to the class is the challenge. It should be other kinds. It may be, for example, the technology. That's a reality. I have to acknowledge that. It may be, for example, the connectivity with that technology. For example, you know, internet connectivity, that type of piece. But those are different kinds of challenges, and we can all help to mitigate that on some front. And as I said, Reception House, great, there's a great example of how they've just, come to the front and really helped and stepped up with the students on that particular front. But to your point, the other piece is, you're right. We do have something called the Entrepreneurship Collective at our college. That's one area where if there are companies who may not have, 10 or 15 workers who need this, but they have 1 or 2, we do offer language support for the 1 or 2, connect with us on that front, and we can see potentially who else may need 1 or 2, and we can bring that together to make it possible for delivery in this new delivery platform. As I was saying, it wouldn't have, to your point, Ian, it wasn't so well received or thought of, a year ago, maybe even 8 months ago. But now we're stuck in it, and I see a lot more people understanding and really enjoying. That's the bigger piece. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you're doing it well. But what I really like is the context that we have people trained in educational delivery who are always trying to be purposeful. If we're using online, synchronous, let's make classes that make sense in that environment. So we have the marriage of that when we deliver these. And I think and student feedback is all you can go by. And student feedback and results are what count. And we've been getting great feedback, and we've been seeing students move forward, move up, if you will, to different levels. So there's proof in the pudding.
Yeah, I guess as we sit doing a chamber event on looking at our computer screens, that would not have happened 12 months ago in February or March of last year. So, and for us, I think that the takeaway is we won't ever get back to the way we ran things from 12 months ago. It'll be some combination of what we're doing now and what the new normal looks like. Listen, Bashir, I guess it begs the question, and I'm going to come back to Janet because I'm really interested in how they made it work. But are there other employers who have participated in this program? Like I want people to imagine, if they're watching this tonight or watching it now or see it in the next couple of weeks, can they see their business getting involved in utilizing this program? So are you recruiting new employers or actively trying to get new employers for working together? And how would one get involved if a business is watching right now? How do they get involved?
Yeah, the way employers can get involved, we do the outreach, we go out, we talk to employers, we explain that the value of the program, that what employers are getting from it is just access to job-ready employees, access to ongoing vocational support after clients are employed, and so on. Janet, JD Sweet Food has been, as I mentioned, the champion. They keep hiring clients as of the beginning, huge groups of refugees. Janet said, if I'm not wrong, 2/3 of JD Sweet's employees are the ones who have been connected to them through the Working Together employment program. The second employer that we have been working with, Metal Manufacturing in Stratford. Normally we sign an MOU with employers, and then we start working together collaboratively, just to help each other. With Metal, actually just recently 8 of our refugee employees working there have been upskilled. Now they are working as welders there. That has been a huge success for us. We have been working, collaborating with the Tiger Cat Industries in Cambridge. The other company, Barco Manufacturing in Guelph, we have been working with them since the beginning, end of kind of 2018. And recently we started partnership with DC Food. It is a branch of Grand River Food and Waterloo. They have hired about 17, 18 of our refugee clients. And the other company that also, but we are at different stage of partnership with all these employers. The other employer is Oxy, CB, and Guelph that also hired about 10 of our refugee employers. Yeah.
So maybe the question, I mean, is this unique to manufacturing and manufacturing supply chain, or are there other types of businesses that that you're either exploring working with or have worked with? I mean, because it's fine to start somewhere. I mean, I think this has
Yeah.
legs to it. Is everyone needs employees. You can look at financial services, you can look at insurance, you can look at everyone right up and down the list. There are needs in so many sectors, or certainly coming out of the pandemic, there will be. They were there before we went into the pandemic, and they'll be there after. Is this lend itself to manufacturing, or is this program scalable or applicable to other sectors?
What has been interesting with the Working Together project that it has been a continuous process of customization and adaptation, and the steering group that is leading the project you're meeting on a monthly basis, just discussing successes, failures, all whatever. And IRCC has been really supportive to all the new ideas, and it has been proven that based on the concept that has been created, if the structured support that is available, that the project has been scalable to all the sectors. Obviously, even within the manufacturing sectors, our experience shows that each employer is unique. There are unique needs. That's why we work together to adapt ourselves to address those needs. But I'm sure that in any sectors, language is there, the settlement support for employees are there, the vocational support for the employers are there. If there is the willing, this can be a scale to other sectors as well. Yeah.
Good. So Janet, I mean, this is speaking employer to employer. I guess that's really want you to be the evangelist and say it's worked for us. What would you want other employers to know about this program, and why should they want to participate? Because there is, I mean, and you've been clear about this. There's an investment of time and investment in a variety of ways. Time, some resources to get the end result, which has been good for JD Sweet. But what would you want other employers to know about the program? Why should they think it's a good thing for them, and how for why they should want to participate?
Well, let me start with some basic numbers. So we've hired just over 100 clients from Reception House to date. We've retained about half of them, which is not out of line from our non-stream retention at this point. When I was asked at the beginning of this program what would I see success as, and that was I needed to have a reliable candidate stream. I wanted to see employees join us and their English was going to improve to the point that we saw them move from that unskilled general labor to our skilled and higher paying jobs. That's success for me. So out of those 100 folks, and we've retained the 50%, we now have 25% of our skilled positions filled by the candidates that we've hired from Reception House. So for me, there is a logical progression that what we're doing is working, and we're starting to bear the fruits of the efforts. So what do I want other employers to know? I mean, this has not been an instant fix. This has been a journey, but it's one that was founded in an end goal, and we're getting to that goal. So if you can be flexible and if you can be creative and work with your partners, then you can bear the fruit of the efforts. I joined not knowing. I mean, I jumped in not knowing where this would lead. It started with immigration partnership and it just blossomed. I now have the tools in my kit to go to the CEO and say, when the funding for this program ends, we may need to invest in the future continuation, but I now have 3 years and a well-defined foundation to support that business case. So that's where I would say jump in.
Maybe back to Sean. I mean, it's a continuation of the question I asked of Bashir. We talked about the English language training that the college does in a variety of ways. Have you offered that training to other employers who require support in hiring or training individuals with lower English levels? I mean, there's this program. But you know, the on-site part, on-site in quotes, right? Whether it's physically or it's in this context, um, is I don't know if it's new, but it's a new way of adapting that. Have you done this type of collaborative approach with other employers? And you know, maybe the broader context of, you got this program here, which is important for people to know about. But I think even for anyone that needs to improve their English language training, that's kind of table stakes for employment in most workplaces. Have you worked with other businesses, and what's your take on how to connect not only this program but other businesses?
Yeah, no, great question. And a number of contexts have already come up by way of what Janet said, actually, and Bashir as well. But you know, sometimes when companies hire people based on a degree itself, you know, they assume certain skill sets are there, perhaps. So what we're seeing sometimes is that employers are saying, we love this person on so many fronts. It's just, you know, there's a weakness in this aspect of English that's important for the job. And I love that Janet and I speak the same language with respect to NOCs, knock codes. So for everyone else out there, knock, what's a knock? It's a National Occupational Classification. And all of our programs, because we're a vocational institution in terms of, you know, there's a job at the end of what we're doing, is English that we have in these programs has to speak to those knocks, has to speak to those occupations. So when employers come to us, we have the context of knowing what they need in that occupation. And when we have those discussions about, you know, great person that I have here, it's just that we need a couple of tweaks on these fronts. We get the why. We understand that language of knock, so to speak. So we do. We can offer special contract training. Again, our entrepreneurship collective at the college is the place to kind of come to ask that question. Employers ask the question is, can you do this? We often get that. Do you do this? We know you do English, but do you do this in terms of the workplace context? And we do. We're here to serve the community on a number of fronts, obviously, not just with getting your certificate, diploma, or degree, but also for after, if you will, after educational market, so to speak. So after you've gotten that, you know, credential, there's still work to be done. And I think you're thinking of that too, Ian. I mean, you have a credential, but you may still need improvement in certain aspects of what you've done, or the job that you're in may be a bit different from what you as an employee expected, and what the employer also kind of has changed. And the pandemic's a good example. Things may change for other reasons with the job, and yes, they can come to us, and we do offer that type of training. What I would say is this: what may have been prohibitive, I would say, a year or two ago, was the idea that it would be one-on-one or going to that company. Now what we can say is, look, we have a different delivery model now. So, you know, we can pool resources. So if we know of other companies that also have a similar ask, you know, economies of scale, we can bring that down for you, and we can bring people together on that front in terms of improving and having language classes that have a specific nature that fit the bill for both companies, so to speak. So it's become different. As I said, interesting, the silver lining, sounds weird to say, of the pandemic is interesting because it has provided these kinds of efficiencies that weren't there previously.
Well, and I think what was interesting, Janet, maybe talk a little bit more about this. I mean, where it started out was for some of your less skilled jobs on the plant floor, but if I heard you correctly, you've got, is it 25% of the people that you've hired that are still under, that are in some sort of either management or more skilled position? I would imagine that the continuation of, if you want to go from the you know, the plant floor to anything else, that improvement in language and being able to communicate and having just that extra layer of skills is important. And is that part of how this program, the Working Together program, works, like that continuing education part?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's a formalized plan for every person, but once they've been identified to move forward, and you promote people on a number of fronts. English is a component of it, but it was our largest hurdle to see people move forward. Once they're in that stream, then they look at their individualized training plans to get them to a different level. We're still new with that. So far, we have our machine operators for us on-the-job trainers as well as lead hands. So that now you start to get to your pre-management stage. So it's very exciting. I see our workforce very different than I did 3 years ago, where the demographics will change, and in the next couple of years we'll see a continuation of that change. Our management and our skilled has to be representative.
That's an interesting question. It's not one, so I'm going to put you on the spot. Is the demographics younger then? I mean, are you finding that your workforce has become younger? That the immigrants and refugees that are coming and you're getting to you are does that make you a younger company?
It's funny, I had just run a report last week going, I wonder where we are, because up to this point we have seen the gradual increase of our average age of our workforce. It's come down by about 10 years on an average.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. Okay, so Badger, back to you, and this is your. I'm gonna, as we're starting today, we got about 10 minutes left, so I got a couple of wrap-up questions. I don't know that I've got anything that I haven't already asked in the chat box. So, but this is your infomercial. If an employer was watching this or watches this in the next few days and interested in participating, where do they go and what do they do to get connected with you to start that conversation about, you know, what Reception House can do, the role of the Conestoga, and more importantly, what the business needs and how they can fill that gap?
Yeah, my message would be just for our employers, don't be afraid of hiring newcomers, refugees, immigrants. Support is in place. It has been proven that these newcomers, if the support is there, they can be very productive, loyal employees. They are resilient. They have the capability of learning, advancing at the workplace. If any of the employers are interested, please connect with us at Reception House, receptionhouse.ca, or directly with me. We are here to help. Yeah, support is here. We have created a fabulous team of partners in the community, with the Conestoga College, with our partner employers, with the research institution, with the KW Multicultural Center. They have been providing the health and safety training for about 2 years for our clients. The support is here, and we will be really happy to help any employers interested in hiring refugees, immigrants.
And so one of the pieces, now maybe I'll ask this to each of you from your own perspectives. I've for, I don't know, 10 plus years have been involved with the Immigration Partnership, or before that, the Waterloo Region Immigrant Employment Network, as part of the chamber. Is the smallest of businesses or smaller businesses have some unique challenges. How, and I think this is we've sort of heard around the edges how in context, you know, getting small businesses to think of themselves as being able to, with the right supports, be able to engage in this. Like, you know, Janet, you're an HR professional. You've got colleagues, I'm sure, big, small, through HR associations or just industry colleagues. You know, Sean at the college, trying to say a lot of your businesses would be those smaller businesses looking for the skills. Bashir, you know, I think one of the untapped parts is, now that you've got a program that works, is how do we get those small businesses to say, this is something that could work for a small business, particularly if you're grouping people together. So maybe I'll start with, I don't know if there was a question in there, but I'm interested in your perspective on how we kind of get that out to the smaller businesses. Janet, any from your HR, you know, as an HR professional?
What I found interesting was the fact that outside of my time and, let's say, the additional effort on the initial project and working through those hurdles, there hasn't been a lot of financial requirement on our behalf. The program has taken it, but I wouldn't have known to put forward a proposition or proposal for the program. Our community partners are the ones that have the expertise in that, and they have the connection with the resources that are available. As an HR person, I had no clue. So it has allowed me to dive a little bit deeper into what our region provides and quite frankly, not at a lot of money. So the resources are there. So for a smaller company that might not have a lot of resources, there's definitely a benefit for reaching out.
Okay, and that's a good point. I mean, the role of the immigration partnership, the role of the college, the role of reception house. I mean, the partners, you're right, are the ones that are interacting day to day with the source of potential employees. So that's an important connection that they all play. Any thoughts on that, Sean?
I think Janet was really good in saying, some of the key challenges. One that I would say is you don't know what you don't know. You don't know the contacts. You don't know what's out there. So the first piece is people assume cost is going to be prohibitive, and it might be, but it might not be. It's one of those things you really have to just make the contacts, and if you don't know who, there might be a front face, like a reception house, for example. That may be a front face. Go there first to find out. The college itself, certainly, do connect with us. The question is who, which area. We're so big. And as I said, for businesses, it could be as simple as the entrepreneurship collective, as I keep saying, as one area to contact. It could be with the department directly as well. I mean, English, ESL, that could be it as well. But to Janet's point, there are a number of other community members that are also very supportive, very helpful. And segueing back to Bashir, Reception House is a good example of that partner.
Bashir?
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes this project unique that employers are not receiving any financial assistance for being part of it. I think the counties have more informed and reliable source of labor force and the support that the employment team keeps providing whenever there is a need. If it is at the middle of the night, Janet is there, we are there to help. Whenever that was that we feel that was what was lacking. It is not an intervention, one-time intervention, connecting employee to an employer and leave them. No, we are there to help all the parties involved to make sure that this helps, because employment is so important for refugees. It is a gateway to their integration to the community. And we are having so many interesting stories about the successes, how it has been a life-changing practice for refugees here. And with the smaller employer, one issue was the on-site language classes. When we transition to virtual, that issue is not there, as Sean was mentioning. It is interesting that in one class now we have an employee that is working at Barco in Guelph. The other one is Cambridge and Tiger Cat, the other one in Stratford, but they're all together virtually. I think there is no issue. Apart from partnering with officially with all the employers that I've mentioned, there are occasions that we have connected refugees with the help of our colleague case managers, individual refugees to other employers who needed 1-2 employees. We just made the arrangements. They are working there. Yeah, if there is any need, please feel free to connect with us.
Okay, there's a question that did come in the chat box. I think it's we didn't get to that. That's my fault, or it just came in, but I didn't cover this ground. But and it's a question saying they ask about cultural training, and that their experience over 25 years in Canada is that language is actually probably the easiest part to get, because you can get the Conestogas, or you can get the train. Well, not that it was easy, but we're making it easier, and that's something that is definable of I need to learn English, and you can get the right type of training where you are on the scale. But with culture, it's different, and it's not often as easy to kind of get those the cultural norms, if you will, in Canada for immigrants and refugees, and so that they may not be their talents aren't maximized because they don't have that. Maybe I'll actually start with Sean and Janet, and circle and end off with Sean.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and I would say language learning is more than just the language itself. It really is those cultural pieces, absolutely. And I think if you were to learn English in a vacuum, absolutely, you'd only get English. But the whole point we're saying here is no, we still very much want a classroom style delivery, even if it's online like this. And the reason for that is because we expect what happens in the classroom. and that's what this is that other students share their work and life experiences, the challenges they're going through, and that's also discussed and explained in English, of course, but those kinds of cultural norms, if you will, or expectations that may be different from where they've come, those are part of the classroom, of the living classroom. So I would say that's the benefit of this kind of English language program or training. You do get those pieces for sure. Certainly, I would say the context that Janet and Bashir may offer for other kinds of situations will only enhance that aspect, but that certainly happens in an English language class in this context.
Janet?
I would say if I could go back in time, I would probably spend more time preparing our plant for having a different type of recruitment and like preparing them. I didn't even touch on it. We jumped in with both feet and we worked through it as we went along. The second part of that would be preparing the employees joining us, and that's where Reception House has really been a great partner. From a timetable, showing up to work on time, and what does that mean for line driven when someone isn't aware and it hasn't been their cultural experience. When we have brought this up to Reception House, they've added these types of things into their pre-employment training to get people ready for the Canadian workplace experience.
That's good. Okay, Bashir?
Yeah, well, that is a very interesting and discussion about the workplace culture. A lot of issues are happening because of that misunderstanding. Part of our pre-employment training that we provide to employees are Canadian workplace culture orientation. Sometimes it takes 2 days, normally 5-6 hours training. It is an interactive orientation that very detailed, starting from what does it mean to work in Canada, how to greet your colleagues, communication, body language, punctuality, all the things. And the interesting part within these 3 years has been that based on the feedback that we receive from our partner employers and feedback from the employees, we keep incorporating those feedbacks into this orientation materials that we provide to employees. It has been really a learning process for us, but we have now a system in place.
Good. Okay, just as a reminder, if anyone's watching this today or when they get the recording or through on our website moving forward, contact Bashir at Reception House or go through the Immigration Partnership. Nora and Tara and her gang can make the right connections for you to make sure you get connected to do with the partners, because it's going to be it'll be a variety of things. The employer connecting with Conestoga and Reception House or others, along with the partnership, is how to take advantage of what is an essential part of the labor market, both now and moving forward, which are newcomers and immigrants to Canada. Listen, that's all the time we have today. I want to thank Janet, Bashir, and Sean for joining us today and for being such a great panel. We appreciate all of your expertise and for joining us to share your thoughts. That does bring us to the end of today's session. Once again, as always with anything that we do at the Chamber, we are very much dependent on the support of the community, our corporate partners and our sponsors and our partnerships. So to our title sponsor of the Business Success Series, to Manulife, thank you. Our platinum sponsor for the series, the Business Success Series, is the Immigration Partnership of Waterloo Region. This month's presenting sponsor is our good friend Michael Snyders from Future Focus Incorporated. And again, once again, to today's speakers, Janet, Bashir, and Sean from Conestoga, Reception House, and JD Swade, we really do appreciate you joining us. Finally, to all of you for joining us today, as a reminder, we host a new Business Success Series session every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Next Wednesday, Michael Snyders of Future Focus joins us for a session on strengthening talent through leadership. We will discuss how to retain, engage, and develop the talent within your teams through practical and effective leadership principles. We hope to see you then. And for fuller details and to register for this free session, please visit greaterkwchamber.com. Please do share this series with your friends and colleagues and join us every Wednesday afternoon for the next edition of the Greater KW Chamber's Business Success Series. Because if it's Wednesday, it's the Business Success Series. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great afternoon.